If she already has someone, but still reaches out to you, it's not love, it's a test. And most broken men fail it. Because you want to believe, don't you? That maybe she remembered, that maybe she regretted walking away. That maybe, this time, she came back for you. But what you forgot is how many times she reached out, only to disappear again before the sun rose. You don't know whether to reply or stay silent. Every message from her feels like a wound reopening. She doesn't even need to say much. Just her name lighting up your screen brings everything rushing back. The nights you stayed awake. The days you convinced yourself it meant something. The hope you kept feeding while starving your own peace. This video is not about her. It's not to decode her reasons or justify her return. It's about you, the man who once fell too deep and is now standing on the edge, about to fall again into the same fire. If you're that man, the one who still believes her voice means she misses you, the one who remembers her laugh louder than her silence, the one who never got a real goodbye, then stay with this video all the way through, not to wait for her, but to finally hear yourself again. What does a woman truly want when she already has someone, but still finds her way back to you? If this touches the quiet doubt you've carried, leave one honest sentence for yourself in the comments. Not to impress anyone, but to finally speak what you never dared to. And if you're over 40 and tired of half love and quiet heartbreak, subscribe to Deep Modern Man. You don't need another explanation. You just need a place to start over with truth. You didn't ask why she came back. You only felt what you always felt when it came to her. Hope. She came back, and you didn't even breathe. You thought you were okay. You told yourself you had moved on. But the second you heard her voice, the second she said your name again, everything inside you collapsed. You didn't ask why she reached out. You didn't ask who she left behind. You just answered. Because for so long, you've been answering her even in silence. You watched her speak, not as a stranger, but like someone who once lived in your bones. You caught yourself memorizing her face again, her laugh, her pauses, as if no time had passed, as if she never left you standing in a room full of echoes. You wanted to believe this meant something, that maybe she saw what she walked away from, that maybe, after everything, you were still the one. So when she smiled, you gave in. When she said, "I miss our talks," you heard, "I miss you." But the questions never left. They just sat in the back of your mind. Quiet, but loud enough to disturb your sleep. Why now? Why not before? Why not when you needed her most? You kept them inside. You didn't ask, "Do you still love me?" You didn't ask, "Did you leave him?" You didn't ask, "What do you want from me?" Because deep down, you were scared of the answers. You were afraid she might say something too honest, or worse, something too vague. You've lived long enough as a broken man. You know the difference between attention and affection. But this time, it's harder, because it's her, the one you never really stopped waiting for. And now that she's here, you're not sure if you're being chosen or simply remembered. You want to believe this is love coming back, but maybe it's just her confusion, knocking on the last door she didn't burn. She tells you she's been thinking of you, that she's sorry for how things ended. You nod. You smile. But inside, Your heart doesn't know whether to open or to hide. Because if she truly wanted you, she would have come back with both feet on your side. Not one foot still in someone else's life. That's the disconnection. You're not in love, you're in hope. And hope, when not returned, becomes a trap. So you ask the question you've been too afraid to speak aloud. What does a woman truly want when she's already taken, yet still reaches out to you? And is it ever really you she wants, or just the part of herself she lost along the way? She said she felt safe with you, that you made her feel understood, that when she's with you, she could breathe. But then, morning came, and she disappeared again. At first, you held on to those moments. You thought they meant more than they did. You hoped this was how people find their way back, that what was broken could be healed, through soft laughter in quiet rooms, or hands brushing briefly when no one else was looking. But there's a difference between healing and hiding. You began to believe that you were the exception, that you were the one man who could make her feel something real again. But the truth is quieter and harder. You weren't chosen. You were available. You weren't her future. You were her escape. You showed up when her pride was cracked, when her current relationship stopped making her feel adored. You became the mirror she used to see herself as wanted again. Not because she chose you, but because you were there when she needed to feel chosen. And in that illusion, you started bending. You accepted midnight texts. You answered calls that never came during daylight. You justified being hidden. You convinced yourself that stolen time was romantic, that being her secret made you important. But you weren't special. You were safe. You weren't the man she loved most. You were the man she could reach without consequence. And every time she whispered, "He doesn't understand me," you took it as proof that you were different. But those words weren't truth. They were tools, soft manipulations designed to keep you close. While she stayed where she truly belonged, you started losing track of your own boundaries, of what you once said you'd never tolerate. You stopped speaking up, not out of strength, but fear. Fear that saying too much might end it, that asking too directly might reveal the answer you weren't ready to hear. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And now, you understand, because you're doing it too. You're not just in her shadow. You're living inside your own. You're clinging to something half-present, while your full self slowly disappears. You think love means waiting, that patience will earn you a place. But silence doesn't build connection. It builds resentment. And when you finally ask yourself, what does she really want? You might realize a more painful truth. What have I lost, trying to become what she needed? Because a broken man doesn't just break from loss. He breaks from the weight of holding on, while never truly being held. And yet, despite all that pain, you still waited, still listened, still believed she might return. She said she couldn't live without you, but every night, she still went home to him. You thought if she texted first, it meant she still cared. You believed that if she smiled when she saw your name, it meant she was coming back. You kept holding on to every small signal, like it was a map back to her heart. But love doesn't knock in secret. and it never hides behind someone else's name. She said you were different, that with you, she could finally breathe. But if that breath only comes when no one else is watching, then it's not freedom, it's indulgence, and it's not yours. You waited. You answered. You forgave more than you ever thought you would. You convinced yourself this was something special, something real, something worth breaking for. But if she truly wanted to begin again, she would have left the old behind. She would have stepped forward, with both feet, into a life that included only you. Not both of you. Not halfway. Not in shadows. When a woman keeps two men in her orbit, she's not choosing. She's anchoring. She's not reaching for you. She's reaching for her own balance. And you became the counterweight she needed, not the man she wanted. You thought you were the answer, but she wasn't asking a question. You thought you were the one, but you were only the reminder that she still had options. And somewhere in that mess, you stopped asking what you deserve. You started shrinking to fit into spaces where no real man belongs. You justified being hidden. You buried your truth under her excuses. You became smaller, quieter, and easier to reach, but harder to recognize. If you are not being called her man, if you are not part of her days, if you are not the one she chooses in the open, then you are not hers. You are only the echo of who she once knew, and the comfort she reaches for when her real world gets too heavy. You're a broken man, not because you lost her, but because you forgot who you were, while trying to be what she needed. You weren't born to be the space between two lives. You are a man, and you deserve a love that never asks you to hide. You thought, if she kept texting, it meant she still loved you. You thought, if her words were sweet, and she remembered little things, it must mean something real. But after every message, what stayed wasn't love. It was the ache of being in between. Not hers, not free, just suspended, like a man waiting for a train that already left. You were not her partner. You were not her stranger. You were the pause between two lives she couldn't choose from. And the hardest part wasn't that she left you in that place. It was that you accepted it. You gave it a name. You called it connection when it was only confusion. You called it love when it was only longing. You waited, quietly, for her to see you again. But she only looked when she needed escape, not when she was ready to stay. And now, here you are, still holding on to a hope that doesn't hold you back, still answering messages that never ask how you truly feel, still giving pieces of yourself to someone who doesn't make room for all of you. That is not strength. That is survival. And survival is not the same as healing. So you need a line, a simple, clear line. Write this somewhere, you'll see it. I don't respond to love that hides. And when she texts again, wait 10 seconds. Breathe. Ask yourself, if I truly respected myself, how would I respond? Not what would feel good. Not what would win her back. What would honor you? Then write down one thing you've been pretending not to notice. Maybe it's the way she only calls at night. Maybe it's the way she disappears on weekends. Maybe it's how you still hide this from your friends, like it's something fragile you're not allowed to speak of. Because what you're holding isn't love. It's the leftover space between someone else's indecision. It's the echo of a connection that only shows up in shadows. It's a woman trying to feel chosen without choosing you. And you've called that intimacy, but it's not. It's abandonment in disguise. You are not a refuge for someone who won't leave their storm. You are not the second life. She visits when the first one feels too heavy. You are not her healing. You are your own. And if you ever want to stop feeling like a substitute, stop offering yourself like one. This is heartbreak recovery for men. This is how a broken man, over 40, begins again. Not by waiting for her to choose, but by choosing himself with clarity. This is how a broken man finally learns what a woman truly wants and stops giving her what he no longer owes. Because now, you see it. What she wants is not your soul. She wants your silence, your softness without presence, your time without commitment, your heart without being willing to give hers. And now, you finally understand. You weren't rejected because you weren't enough. You were trapped because you kept giving too much to someone who never asked to keep it. So let this be your line in the sand. You're not the backup. You're not the silence between her doubts. You're a man. And it's time. You live like one. She came back. Maybe for closure. Maybe for comfort. Maybe for the version of herself. The one that only existed beside you. And you thought, maybe this time it would be different. That love sometimes walks away to find itself, then returns to stay. But now, after everything, you finally see it. She's not wrong for coming back, but you're not wrong for not waiting anymore. You're not cruel for stepping away. You're not broken because you stopped hoping. Love isn't a war to win. You are not a prize to be claimed only when she's lonely. You are not the secret she turns to when the public life gets too quiet. You are not the echo in her silence, filling the spaces others left behind. You don't need her to choose you today, but you also don't need to keep standing where she won't let go of yesterday. You don't need to fight for a love that won't stand with you. You don't need to shrink yourself just to fit into her story again. Because you've done that. You've bent. You've waited. You've held space. You've been the broken man who confused being available with being loved. You've been the one who thought silence was strength, but not this time. This time, silence is clarity. Distance is self-respect. And letting go is no longer pain. It's peace. So let me ask you this. What if knowing what a woman truly wants begins with knowing what you truly deserve? If you've ever been that man, caught between the shadow of the past and the pull of her return, then write down what you couldn't say back then. If this video touches the part of you you've been hiding, like it. Subscribe to Deep Modern Man and share your story. Because tonight, someone else might need to read your words just to remember they're not alone.